Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Ruth Ramirez. She has a PhD education in curriculum and instruction degree, which she got at IAS. She is right now a professor in the Graduate School of Education at Montemorelos University in Mexico. Her emphasis is in teacher education and early childhood education. Her areas of expertise include teacher training, early childhood education, and qualitative research coding. She is also a well-known recording artist, one of the most beautiful voices that I have ever heard. That's, in fact, Ruth, an understatement. She's a composer and director of music, and she has performed throughout Central and South America. She produces and directs teacher training and children's ministry videos. And for the last 8 years, she has produced the Vacation Bible School series for the Inter-American Division. She currently lives in Montemorelos, Mexico with her husband, Dr. Miguel Pateno, a professor of theology, and their 3 sons. We will now give the time to Dr. Ruth Ramirez. She is going to present her study titled Curriculum and Professional Development Using the Universal Design for Learning Framework, a case study with an action research component. As we have conducted trainings, and a frequent question that has been asked us is, can an action research be a dissertation? And this afternoon, you will see that how possible that is. So now let us welcome Ruth. We also welcome her husband, Dr. Miguel. They are working together to make this presentation successful. And we really appreciate, I told both of them that it's a sacrifice because right now it's like 3-something in the morning. So let's welcome Dr. Ruth Ramirez.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here with you. You know, just to see the videos of Ayas and everything, it doesn't matter what time it is, it just fills our hearts with joy. And we really enjoy the time that we spent there. So I want to welcome each of you. I want to thank you first, and I want to welcome each of you to this session and to AQRA for the invitation to present my study. As Dr. Rosario mentioned, the title of my study is Curriculum and Professional Development Using the Universal Design for Learning Framework, a case study with an action research component. There are a number of reasons why education has become a more complex and elaborated task. Some of the reasons include the increase in the number of theories, the array of research on learning and teaching practices, and the growth of students' diversity in the classroom. The Universal Design for Learning Framework, UDL, in the recent past has received much attention from educators and scholars because of its ability to enhance the curriculum in a proactive way. It has received attention because it's based upon cognitive science, particularly on how people learn. Because of its individual variability, the curriculum is not always tailored to help teachers meet the students' different needs. The purposes of the study were to understand how the UDL framework improves curriculum and professional development, how to implement the training model to ensure that the training will be transferred to the workplace, to develop an action plan for implementing UDL, and to improve my training skills. The concept of universal design is credited to Ronald Mace, an architect and industrial designer. He built on the idea that good design ought to accommodate everybody. He focused on creating barrier-free environments without adaptations or specialized design. A group of professors from Harvard heard about the UD ideas and they decided to implement them in the education field. And they call it Universal Design for Learning. Universal Design for Learning is a framework to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all based on scientific insights, cognitive and neuroscience of how humans learn. The principles of UDL are to provide multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression. When you're building a curriculum, each of them should be included. Here is an example of one of the participants who received the training implemented the UDL principles when using a group jigsaw. If you see, there's a text. Usually you will give a student a text, but here, using the UDL adaptations, that you have to add things for them to understand better. So you highlight, in this case, she highlighted the key points of the text. She also put images on it. Big font was used, and every group received different information as a group jigsaw must have. But not only that, they also presented a video with captions, big font captions, and the audio as well. So with that, they tried to eliminate barriers that students might face. Many theories about how children learn have been shared. These theories help educators and teachers to understand how children learn and develop. They also support teachers through the use of methods and strategies to promote effective learning. I found some relevant theories that help teachers promote effective learning and value the student's personal characteristics and uniqueness. Some of them were the social cultural theory of development by Vygotsky, Bloom's taxonomy by Benjamin Bloom, cooperative learning theory by Johnson and Johnson, and the hierarchy of needs theory by Maslow. According to Sager, the research questions are the ones that direct the study. In this study, I used the following research questions. What does the Universal Design for Learning framework look like when implemented? What were the participants' teaching practices before using the Universal Design for Learning framework? How is curriculum development in the Summer Institute enhanced through the use of Universal Design for Learning framework? Question number 4. What were the perceptions of teachers and trainers after the use of the Universal Design for Learning framework? Question 5. What challenges did the teachers face while implementing the Universal Design for Learning? And question number 6. In what ways did the Universal Design for Learning framework enrich the teacher's professional development? Question number 7. How can the Universal Design for Learning framework be used to improve professional development programs in the future? The research design I used was a qualitative single case study with an action research component. A case study focuses on describing the phenomenon, understanding and finding meaning from others' point of view, people, and the environment. The phenomenon of my study was the Summer Institute. The boundaries of the study were time, geography, and program boundaries. Program boundaries involved the Summer Institute. The time frame was specifically from 2015 to 2018. That was every year the Summer Institute was given in part. So from 2015 to 2018 was the time frame that I conducted the study. Then geographically, its location was a specific faith-based institution in Southeast Asia. On the other hand, action research focuses on a problem and how it can be solved. It results in the development of an action plan that will improve one's own practice in the delivery of instruction. The cycles of action research are to reflect, to plan, act, observe, reflect, and then plan again. And it's a cycle that keeps on going. And with that, as a researcher, you improve your own practice as a result of that. I follow Sager's 7 steps of action research, which are selecting the focus, clarifying theories, identifying the research questions, collecting the data, analyzing the data, and taking an informed action, and elaborate an action plan. The study was conducted in a higher level institution with 32 teachers. I use a purposive sample. Purposive sampling means choosing the ones you can learn the most from. To select my sample, I consider the following criteria. The participants were teachers. They had to be enrolled in the Summer Institute 2018, and they had to be willing to participate in the study. I follow the suggestions from Croswell and the institution's Ethics Review Board Office to protect the participants' rights. The research objectives were articulated orally and in writing, so they were clearly understood by the participants, including a description of how data will be used. The data was collected through literature review, interviews, observations, documents like journals, lesson plans, and field notes. To ensure trustworthiness, I created a triangulation matrix where each question was answered by different data sources. For example, how does the Universal Design for Learning framework looks like when implemented? I used the literature review, the interviews, and the observations to answer that question. What were the participants' teaching practices before using the Universal Design for Learning framework? I used the interviews and surveys documents as well. And as you can see, the questions are there. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see that different sources answer each of the questions. To analyze the data, I use a Taba inductive process, which consists of 3 phases. In phase 1, you collect data, enumerated data, group data, label the groups. In phase 2, you identify critical relationship, explore relationship, make inferences about the data, and then you continue with phase 3 by generating hypotheses, explain predictions, and discover meaning. This is something I like, really like, the coding, but when analyzing. So I gave 2 different set of colors to code my, I use 2 set of colors to code my data. If you see here, I know it's quite small, but you can see the different colors. So these 4 colors are the participants. And it was very good for me to use it because when I was writing my thesis, it looked very colorful. Actually, let me tell you, I love colors. That's why I do this coding in that way, because it makes this analysis a fun thing to do, okay? So when you have when you're writing your findings and everything, you see that it's colorful. And with that, it's not about only color, but to make everyone's voice to be heard. It's like if pink is one participant, green is another, and purple and yellow is another one. I really wanted to have everyone in the findings, so that way I was making justice to each of them, you know, that they were participating. And then here I have, there's a frame there with many colors. Those are the colors I gave to the themes that emerge. Okay, so you see the numbers are brown, and they go to volume 3, theme 12, that was UDL, the theme was UDL. So that was the way I coded it when I did it manually. But then not just happy with that, since I liked very much, I said, okay, let me do it now with the software. And I use Quirkus. Why I use Quirkus? Because it's a very good software. And it lets you go through the data again. It's not something that it just gives you the results or group themes and everything. No, you go and highlight again by colors, and it's almost the same process that I did manually, but then with the things that a software can give as well. So from that 5 themes, major themes emerge. For the coding, every time that a word was repeated more than 3 times, either concept, idea, or word, then I consider it like a theme. And if it keep growing, then like this one teacher had 121 hints. So it was a big theme, okay? And from that analysis, 25 themes emerged. So what I did is I conducted again the Tava inductive methods, but this time with 25 themes in order to narrow, because it was still too broad. And from that, it resulted in five major themes, which are healthy, productive learning environment, professional development, teachers, challenges, and solutions. These major themes helped me to answer my questions, my research questions, which were, what does the Universal Design for Learning framework look like when implemented? It looks like an environment conducive to learning and accessible for all the students, including those in the margins. This was answered by theme 1. Question number 2, what were the participants' teaching practices before using the Universal Design for Learning framework? The participants' teaching practices before using the Universal Design for Learning framework were most of the participants use teacher-centered curriculum. The participants' lack of awareness of UDL framework, and this was answered by theme 2. Question number 3, how is curriculum development in the Summer Institute enhanced through the use of Universal Design for Learning framework? The professional development was enhanced during the Summer Institute by developing a teacher's UDL adaptation manual, a syllabus using the UDL guidelines, and producing an instructional video to provide scaffolding assistance to the participants. This was answered by theme 5, and the list continued. It was improved by preparing instructional materials according to UDL. And finally, I developed an action plan as part of the study describing what to do before, during, and after the training. Question number 4, what were the perceptions of teachers and trainers after the use of Universal Design for Learning framework? Teachers felt anxiety of not knowing about UDL, excitement because of understanding the way the lesson could be enhanced using the UDL guidelines, driven to implement techniques, structures, and strategies and adapt them to the UDL framework. This was answered by theme 3. The trainers' perceptions, the teachers grew in their mindset about UDL. The teachers proactively incorporated and adapted the teaching processes using the UDL framework to their lessons in an intentional way. And this was answered by theme 3. Question 5. What challenges did the teachers face while implementing the Universal Design for Learning? Some of the challenges were lack of awareness of UDL, time management, lesson plans that included the UDL guidelines, preparation of materials, targeting, variability, and the use of technology. This was answered by theme 4. Question number 6. In what ways did the Universal Design for Learning framework enrich the teacher's professional development? It was enriched by providing different ways to meet the needs of every student in school, using effective ways to eliminate learning barriers, increasing the teacher's awareness of a systematic way to use UDL with the teaching techniques, structures, and strategies. By intentionally implementing the UDL guidelines to teach and assess students' learning. Question number 7. How can the Universal Design for Learning framework be used to improve professional development programs in the future? UDL can be used to improve professional development programs in the future by providing a detailed list of the changes to ensure teachers will implement and embed the UDL guidelines in the future training. by using the training model to provide teachers with different options for students to choose from as they reflect on what they learn. Implementing the before, during, and after in the training action plan by following the steps presented. Solutions, or my contribution to the study, was technique, structure, and strategies manual, a syllabus, an instructional video with scaffolded information of the teaching processes, instructional materials adapted to UDL, and an action plan. Recommendations for practitioners. I invite you to wear your UDL lens every day. Think and search for better ways you could present your lesson. Think of all the possible scenarios will keep the creative teacher in you alive. Recommendation for administrators. Undergo the training with the teachers. Use what they have learned in their supervisory capacity appropriately. For further research, someone could develop an innovation configuration map for the implementation of the techniques, structures, and strategies using the UDL framework. Others can describe how students, parents, or teachers perceive the use of techniques, structures, and strategies using the UDL framework. And here's the picture of the manual and the video with the teaching processes that were also developed as part of this study. And this is a picture that I want to include as well. This is one of the participants' classroom, where she has all the UDL elements and principles used in the classroom. The picture is quite small, but if you see there in the beginning, it says setup. When a student enters into your classroom, either a child that has Asperger, a student that has ADHD, or his attention span is very short, when you put these things on the wall or where it's very visible for them, they feel less stressed, less anxious, because it says they're set up. As soon as you enter, you have to do this, and that. And then there's the objectives. We're gonna learn this, and you're telling them everything ahead of time for them to know what's going to happen during the day. There's some children that they don't like when something is changed, or those things are barriers for them. So when you put those guidelines on the board for them to see it, we're gonna leave the classroom at this time. This class will be as long as 30 minutes. They're counting. UDL, it's a very nice way to think of the students in a proactive way and eliminate those barriers that he can have or she can have, if it's anxiety, if it's problems to read, to see, or whatever. Those things, you have to plan them ahead of time. And with that, you will help your students to achieve what you want them to achieve. So thank you very much for listening. In Spanish, muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ruth. It was interesting, and it was also concise and time-wise, so it's good. Now we have more time for question and answer. We already have some questions appearing in our question box, and we have the first question, but first we will ask questions as panelists, and then we will go to the questions from our attendees. So my first question would be, you are using both two designs, case study and action research. Both of them, they're based on quite different philosophical underpinnings. Case study is more exploration, it's interpretivism, and action research is on based on critical approach, philosophical approach. Um, and this is quite unique. I think this makes the study quite unique. So my question is, how did you combine them, and how did you reconcile this philosophical difference in two different designs?
Well, I decided, since case study is a big umbrella, you can add
Okay.
other studies to it, different designs. And I didn't want to stay only on observing, on just seeing what's going on to understand the phenomenon, but I also want to make a difference, that the study could be relevant by giving something. I'm a very pragmatic person, and for me it's like you have to give something, otherwise it's going to get dust in the library, and I don't want that to happen. I say we need to do something, not only understanding, because what happens if I only understand that? No, I want to see, I want to understand, but then I want to intervene as well. I want to take an action, and then from there a plan that I can give to other teachers that are having the same situation, and they can solve their own problem, and they can start their own action research as well. So I think that both of them are quite, even though you say they're different, they're quite how can I say the word in English?
Harmonious.
Yes, yes, since it's something that once you observe everything, then it's time to practice what you and do something about it. That's why I combine both of them.
Thank you. Okay, maybe some other panelists ask some questions. Dr. Dolph?
Yeah, Dr. Ruth, you know, many of us are learning about qualitative research, and we're not at those advanced stages. I wonder if you can share with us, how did you decide when you got to that saturation point? How did you know you didn't collect too much data, for efficiency's sake? How did you decide you had collected enough data?
Well,
these five different sources of data.
Well, when the things started to repeat over and over, we call it saturation, right? When they started to repeat, then you said, okay, I think I had what I wanted to see to find. All the sources at the beginning was, this is a new theme, this is a new theme. But then when you go through the data, and the same themes keep on appearing, you said, okay, I think I have what I wanted to find out on it. I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, even then it can be very inefficient, because we can get a lot of unnecessary data points. How did you know you had done enough interviews? Did you, during your data collection, get to places where you analyzed the data before you went further? Describe to us how you collected the data.
Okay.
To make this efficient and yet thorough.
Okay. Well, the data was collected, as I said, through observation, through literature review, through journals that the teachers made and everything. And it was analyzed as soon as I was getting it. I was analyzing and trying to see what was all about. And if I hope I understood correctly, okay? And then after that, I use, this trustworthiness to see. I leave my audit trail for others to see that I was taking my, my notes and everything for others to follow. The triangulation helped me to see, okay, from this one I'm answering, from this one I'm answering, and the theory says this, the observation says this, the participant says this. So my perception was there. So that way, by making an audit trail, by stating my position as a researcher, and by during this triangulation, I ensured that the trustworthiness was been fulfilled, is the word fulfilled, or
Okay, met, yeah.
met.
Uh,
Yes, thank
you know,
you.
just the practical aspects of collecting that data. And I think you were trying to aim at it by saying this process that you followed. You know, many of us want to know that process, a process that works. Uh, you know, is it at the end of every day? How frequently did you analyze what you already received?
Okay, first, you want to know the whole process. How do I collect the whole way? How did I
No,
do
no,
it?
very brief. I
How
just
did
want
I
to know
analyze? Well, first I
the
talk with the
practical
first.
aspects of collecting that data and at what point you analyze it.
Well, as soon as you receive the data, you can start. Actually, you're observing and you're analyzing. Okay, it's as soon as you're observing, you're taking notes and you're analyzing. Okay, this is happening. This is. But then, for me, I was very rigorous with that. As soon as I got home, to not miss any idea or anything, I was gonna analyze whatever I had in my hand and try to come up with the themes and my notes aside. And and I divided. I make like folders. Would I divide observations? Only observations what written there, and then the I have a file. I wish I could show you because that for me data is very special. So I make a folder for that. I put all the journals in one. I put all the observations in another folder. I put everything was organized because if you don't organize your data from the beginning, then you really suffer and struggle at the end. So you better be very careful when you're starting uh, and very intentional because sometimes you gather data, as you say, that you might not use, but because you were just like trying to get whatever you can't. No, you have to be really, really organized on doing that. I'm going to observe. Okay, read books about observation. How will you go to observe? You will follow a guide or something. Who author you will follow in order to do the observation, and after that you're intentionally observing. Okay, then the second, once you have also your interview, you study those, you make like a pilot for those interviews that you will do, you share it to someone and see if you, because once it happens to me, to my when I was doing my thesis, I made my own interviews and I gave it to the participants, and when I received it, I was surprised to see that what they didn't understand what I was trying to ask them. Okay,
Thank
so
you. You can stop there. Thank you
yeah.
for the practical tips. Because I think,
No, well, the
you
thing
know,
is that you have to be, just to keep that, be organized and intentional when you're collecting your data. And that way you will save time later on. And then if you revise everything you see every day and make your notes and keep your field notes with you, that will help you a lot when you analyze.
thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Selim?
Mhm. No, maybe David has a question.
Okay.
You are muted, David.
Yes, I do have a question, but I see many questions popping up in the Q&A. So maybe
Uh-huh.
if
We
we
have, David, we have enough time.
okay,
Our the question and answer for Dr. Ruth will end at 5 at
6. Oh, okay.
6:01. Yes.
So maybe this is my question. You mentioned that in action research you do iterations, right? There's cycles. When do you decide that the number of cycles are enough? In your particular study, you stopped at a certain number of cycles. What made you think that that is enough? You already have the best result.
Well, as far as I read, there's no rule of saying this is enough since you're trying to since you're trying to improve different aspects. Like in this case, I did the Summer Institute. I started the study from the Summer Institute in 2015, and do it with something, you know, adapting the teaching processes for kindergarten students. And that was the first cycle. This time, I adapted those teaching processes using the UDL framework. But then, and then you grow because you see that some things that you use for kindergarten and some things that you use for UDL are quite not similar, but that help each other. Okay, so when you try, as long as you're trying to get better on something, it's like if I want to bake cakes, and that will be my thing. Well, you will do it until you feel you are good enough on making that recipe, and then you move to another recipe in order to master that one as well, right? I consider that, but there's no number that it says like it's a number of times that you have to do that cycle, or it's enough, you can continue with the cycle or thing like that.
Yeah. So you made a subjective judgment that it is enough for your study. I see. Is Dr. Rita going to comment?
Yes, Dr. Rita, we have upgraded you as one of the panelists, so please feel free to come in anytime. Okay, so maybe we can start the
Yes.
question and answer from the Q&A box.
Okay, so there's a question from Janet Espada. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, I can.
Yes, and it's been voted, I think, 4 times. The question is, how does the UDL address cultural diversity?
One of the, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. UDL addresses cultural diversity. This is the main, since in United States, they have different children for different parts of the world. And that was something that teachers were facing. So they say, we have children that speak different languages, and then we want to teach it. There, some of them are advanced and another ones are behind. And but the time we want to bring this one here, the other ones are, you know, so they were having a hard time with that. But when you use UDL, you have everything planned ahead of time. So you have the words in English, you have the words in the other language, or you have different things. Maybe you have like 20 kids from different countries, 20 different countries in one classroom. It happens in IS very often, okay? So if the main language that they want them to teach is English, then images are very good for them. Okay, so you put images and then you put big words, big captions for each image that you have. If you have the whiteboard, if you have, you know, the door, everything is signed. Okay, and then when you're using the audios or things like that, you try also to write down. Music is very important, and it gives you the guidelines for them to express. It says multiple ways of representation, multiple ways of you present the class in multiple ways for them to understand, but you also give them the opportunity to express in multiple ways. So when you're assessing something, you let them present it in any way. It's like you can make a drawing. You are not writing in English, but you can make a drawing of whatever you're trying to explain, and you have it with images, you have it with captions, you have it with audios. Yeah, all those things help students with cultural diversity, and it's very interesting. Like, this is something I can't just explain in one question like that. It's something that I could talk with this person and give her, you know, many ideas and resources that she can use to solve this problem, because UDL, it's something that really eliminates those barriers. It is intended to eliminate that kind of barriers.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Janet Espada, maybe you can contact Dr. Ruth personally if you need more information on how UDL address cultural diversity. This is the next question, also voted several times by his peers. Neil Carlo Arcega asked, if this study is conducted similarly in other locale, can we use 5 to 8 participants? What are the pros and cons that we may encounter if this number of participants is considered?
Well, you just have more data to analyze, but it will be, it's 4 or 8. It is, it's, it's good. You don't, it doesn't have to be 4. It doesn't have to be 8. In qualitative, you can even have 1, and you will find something to improve your own practice and to learn of that. So if you have 8 participants, it's okay. You can conduct it like that. You will have, like, as I said, more data to analyze, but we'll give you maybe better insights of what they undergo through the whole process of training. Okay, so for this, it's very important for you. It's not the participants. It is you as a researcher to have well planned what will you do in order to carry out the study. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question.
I could make a comment. This is Dr. Rita. With the pros and
Yeah.
cons, it's a matter of depth versus width. Right, Dr. Green?
Yeah, the fewer you interview, the fewer that are included in the study, you can go in much more depth than you could if you had 8 or 30 or 50. So it depends upon, it's a width versus depth kind of question.
Okay, that's a good one. Good morning. He's also waking up very early. Thank you, Dr. Green.
Dr. Rita and Dr. Bill is from the US now. So they're very early in the morning right now.
Both of them were my advisors on my thesis. They were my advisors. So this time, don't let me die alone. Please be there with me. And they're there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Rita and Dr. Bill.
Pleasure.
You're welcome.
Yes. So here's the next question. Well, it's a simple question. Is the QueerCost software free?
Well, there's a trial version, but it's not expensive. You know, they have a very special price for the Philippines. I bought this license when I was in the Philippines, and they give you like a 20% discount from other parts of the world. So I'm so glad that I bought it while I was there, because they give a special discount to the Philippines, and it's a very good software. Okay, you have 1 month trial, but you don't want to leave your study in there, right? It's like you're doing all your thesis or something, and then 1 month it's over, and all your data stay there, the analysis, and you can retrieve it. So you better buy it in order to retrieve. It gives you very beautiful PDF form at the end with colors. I wish I could show you. It's a very nice software, a very useful one, and it gives you a lot of information. There's plenty, you know, the Innova, Atlas D, and all those, but this one is very friendly to work with. So, and then, yes.
Will you be comfortable to tell us how much? There's a question that popped out, like how much? Are you comfortable telling us how much?
No, there's no problem for me. The problem is that I don't remember. But
Okay.
I can give you the link. Okay, at the end I will give you the link, because I bought it when I was there, so it was 2 years ago that while I was doing this. So I don't remember exactly, but I remember that if I bought it there, it was not that expensive. Okay, because we were students and everything, so it's not expensive. And I will put the link there for you. The person who attends, you know, the person behind QueerCost, is very accessible. You can write, I have this problem, you know, I want to change the computer, and this is for lifetime. You buy this one and it's a lifetime software. So I say, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to change computers. As soon as you have your new computer, I can change your account to the Apple computer. It's very, very, a very accessible and kind person. and
Yeah,
he guides you and everything.
thank you, Dr. Miguel. The link is already there. Dr. Miguel
Oh, you see,
posted the link.
that's
Thank
why
you.
I marry him, because he's very efficient. Very efficient.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think we still have time. So here's another one by Mr. Balanga. Can you expound on innovation configuration map?
Innovation configuration map. It's this is suggested there because it's something that will help you to see if you're really implementing UDL. Because it's like you come up with a list of all the things that you have to, if you're doing this, you're implementing UDL. If you're not, then it will show. So there's a whole plan there that you have to study in depth, and that was not my study, so I'm not. I wish I could do that one later on. And so this is for me. I consider this could be a good further research for my study. But Dr. Green knows better on this configuration
Yes,
map.
perhaps
Dr. Green, please.
Dr. Rita and Dr. Green, would you like to comment on this question?
Please.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I will just begin and then I'll let Dr. Green fill it in. But what you do with an innovation configuration is that you are trying to come up with an operational definition for, in this case, UDL. So as she said, once you finish with your innovation configuration, it's going to say, if you're doing UDL, you will have to do these things. If you leave any of these out, it's no longer UDL. So Dr. Green, now add your.
For example, if you're doing a study on the integration of faith and learning, and there's literally hundreds of them, how do we know what one person in one area calls integration of faith and learning and what somebody else calls integration of faith and learning? In this case, some call UDL one thing and some others have a different idea of UDL. So how do we come together as a group of researchers so that we know what the concept is, what the critical attributes of that concept is, so that when we talk about it, we can communicate clearly or more clearly to the people who are reading the study and want to understand the study better. So it's a way of making things concrete and understandable. We've done this for years and years and years. When I was going through college, I was graduate school. I was very interested in cooperative learning. Well, there's hundreds of different definitions of cooperative learning. So we have opposite findings because of that. And so they're defined differently. What we're trying to do is when we use UDL, here's what we mean. Here's what needs to be done. Here's how it needs to be done. And there are levels. It's like learning how to be perfect. There are levels of perfection.
And I also want to add, it still will sound very vague to anyone that's wanting to do it, but they have manuals with the process, very specific process. Now it takes time because you have to go to the people who actually originated the idea, and you have to ask them questions, you have to ask experts questions, you have to ask people using it that use it. But when you put it all together, then you come up with the innovation configuration. It's very exciting, very meaningful, and productive.
And let me tell you that for UDL, if someone wants to continue with this study, the creators or the ones that taught this, Harvard professors, are very accessible. When I tried to contact them, all of them gave me their time, 1 hour, 30 minutes. All of them were very willing and eager to share with me what UDL is. And they treat you with, it's like they live what they preach, okay? they treat you with all those different, you know, ways of UDL, all the different principles that UDL have. So they're from Harvard, and you could say, oh no, they're never going to answer. No, they will. If you contact them, they will be willing to share with you what they have. That's something I learned. I was never scared to ask them or anyone that I needed to ask about my study. So I talked to all of them. All of them gave me information and insight about the study and how could be a better way implemented. So I really think that if you want to do that, you can go for it. They will really be willing to answer your questions to come up with an configuration, innovation configuration map.
David,
Thank
we
you.
have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. My time is showing 5:59 po.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Mine is 2 minutes. No, 2 minutes late. Yeah, so that means maybe we can have quickly, if we can have 1 or 2 questions.
All right. Here's another one. Okay. Based on the recommendation,
That's a good question.
what is the best instructional material to be used in this pandemic period?
Well, there's something very good with UDL. If you enter to their website, it's called CAST, okay? CAST. Escríbeselo ahí. My husband will write that down there. It's called CAST. They have lesson plans already there for you to use and to adapt to your own whatever you're learning. Yes, context. And also they have videos, and the videos have captions and the translation. If you can read, like here, the question based on the recommendations, you hear the voice there saying, based on the recommendation, what is the best instructional materials to be used in this pandemic? Like, you have all those. They're ready for this pandemic. They're ready. We're not, but they're so ready for that. So if you enter to their website, there's many ¿cómo se dice? Material resources. There's many resources you can use from there, and they give it for free. Okay, some of them are free, and some of them are like to pay. But the most of them, they just want everybody to have this. It's like they really want to spread this throughout the world. Yes.
Yeah. So it's in the chat. The link is in the chat.
Yes,
Right.
it's there. The link. Oh,
right.
you see, good husband. Okay.
So do we still have one more for this, or?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
One more? Okay, one more. Is the UDL appropriate to see for use for big class with more than 50 students in secondary level or high school, with diverse learners in terms of learning style, interest, and scholastic characteristics? How?
Okay, UDL, it's on your planning. Okay, it's your on your lesson planning that you make it useful for 50 students, because is that when you plan ahead of time, you say, I will have 50 students. How will I'll help each other. They work cooperatively as well, so they have their groups, they help each other, that you have the ones that can help. That's why I use Vygotsky, because this social interaction, when you have the one that knows more and help the ones and make sure that everyone has a role, so that it's easier to manage a group of 50 if you have cooperative learning. And then if you have, it is really good as well, because you have everything placed in the right, you have everything in the right place, placed in the right place. I don't know if that sounds good or not, but you have all your rules, you have all the things that will help those that as I was saying, that have deficit on something. You have it there. Like, what is our guiding question for today? Okay, our guiding question for today is this, and then with that you refocus the students on what they are supposed to be, what task we're supposed to be doing at this time. You have the whole schedule there for them to see what they're supposed to do in each time, and follow the day. It's like UDL helps like a teacher. Okay, because it puts all the organize everything because you did it ahead of time. You're not reacting. You were proactive for those 50 students. And of course, it works for secondary level, it works for doctoral level, and it's a very we should have like one only about UDL, to explaining the whole thing about UDL because it's very beautiful. But yes, it's like in any field, including religion, including any other field, this could be implemented. And 50 students is not the problem. The problem is for you to make your lesson plan thinking of the possible barriers that your students might have. You have to think in which other way my class can be presented. You know, what else I can use for this. If I have a ear impaired student, how can I reach him? If I have another students with different disabilities, how can I, but not only disabilities, it's different ways, like each brain is different. So just because of that variability, UDL responds to a huge need that we have as teachers. So it's a good framework to follow.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I think we should give a big hand to Ruth. For those of you who can, my reactions here is not showing. So for those of you, maybe you can give a thumbs up, whatever. But now it's time for our break. You may continue posting your questions, and during the break and during the next presentation, Dr. Ruth Ramirez will try her best to respond to the questions you post at the Q&A box. Dr. Rita and Dr. Bill, we would like to invite you. You may continue joining us. We'll have a break of 5 minutes, and then when we come back, we'll give the time to Dr. Ernil Sumayao.
Thank you so much.
You want to have some music,
Yes.
David?
I just want to say to Dr. Ruth that the Q&A here will be mixed with the Q&A of for the next presentation. So I think I will mark them as dismissed, but you go to the dismissed section and you answer them. You can activate it again, the one that you want to answer, so that it will not get mixed with the votings when people are asking for questions to Dr. Ernil Sumayao later. Yeah. So
Okay.
all the questions that are here now, I will dismiss it, but you can still read them in the dismiss section, and you will answer them.
So yeah,
Thank
most
you.
of them I'm trying to see, and most of them are answered already.
Yes, yes. But the ones that are still here, that are still open, so that they will not get mixed up, I will
Okay.
move them to the dismissed. Is that okay with you?
Yes, yes.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ginger Ketting-Weller, and I'm the president of AIAS. That's AIIAS, and it stands for the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies. Many of our alumni tell us AIAS stands for Little Heaven on Earth. It really is a special place. I invite you to come with me and learn about this international graduate school. If you come to AIAS, you will meet and learn from our faculty from 20 countries around the globe. And you will study with approximately 450 fellow students who represent 60 different nations. We have students from every continent and region around the globe. The mission statement says exactly what we do: develop leaders through distinctively Seventh-day Adventist graduate education, excelling in spirituality, scholarship, and service. As one of the gems in the world's second largest parochial school system, our base in the Philippines allows us to ably get visas for our diverse students and to provide a welcoming atmosphere, friendly people, and the infrastructure for high-quality education. While our home campus is just 40 kilometers from the international airport in Manila, we also reach the whole world through other modes: distance learning centers, cohorts, and online programs. AIAS programs are accredited by PASCU, the national level organization in the Philippines, and the Association for Theological Education in Southeast Asia, and the Adventist Accrediting Association based in Maryland in the United States. These affirm the quality of our graduate programs as internationally recognized, and that quality is what brings our students here from around the world. If you were to visit our campus in person, what would you see? You would probably first notice the bell tower designed on the theme of the Alpha and Omega, surrounded by the flags of the countries represented by students, faculty, and staff. Next, you would notice the distinctive Asian design elements in the architecture and accents around campus. You would see the apartment towers which house our students and their families. You would notice the K-12 AIAS Academy, where the children of our students obtain a solid international education and enhance their English language skills. You would see the gymnasium, which supports our campus physical wellness activities. And you'll notice the large auditorium where we have our worship services together. Its unique architectural features include elements that echo the three angels of the biblical book of Revelation. As you walk around campus, you'll come to the graduate school, where people can earn their master's and doctoral degrees in business and education with a variety of specializations, or a master's in public health. Just over from the graduate school is the AIAS Seminary, which offers a variety of master's degrees and 3 doctoral degrees. Let me also highlight our Leslie Harding Library, which is a well-provisioned resource for faculty and students both here and online. AIAS has welcomed library teams from other universities in the region, both private and public, who come to see what we're doing so well in supporting graduate education. Right next to the library is the AIAS Online Office, which energetically serves our online students, even running a week of prayer program online for them twice a year. At AIAS, we believe in well-rounded graduates who can think academically and lead capably. That's why we offer academic conferences and produce 2 research journals. And at the same time, we're active in mission outreach activities. Faculty and students even bring their children along on these activities, teaching them to be of service in the world from a young age. At AIAS, we develop leadership at every level. If you were to study on the AIAS campus, what additional experiences would you find? There is a rich, diverse life in our worship services, our cultural nights, our community events, our celebrations, and food. Friendships are built and deepened as classmates walk the tree-lined roads on campus together and pray together. Alumni leave AIAS talking about how their lives have been changed by interacting with people who think differently, observe different habits and customs, and speak differently, but share a deep love for Jesus and for fulfilling His Great Commission. Let me end our little tour right here in the prayer garden, where faculty, staff, and students love to come for quiet moments of prayer and reflection. Is AIAS a fit for you? Could it be the place that God has in His plan to develop you further as a leader? Perhaps our little tour will help you begin to answer those questions. Pray about it. Read more about our programs and scholarships at our website. If you have questions, contact our staff and they'll be happy to interact with you.
Thank you for joining me for this tour of IAS. As we say around here, may God bless you more.
Okay, so thank you so much. Now we are on the second part of our conference, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Ernil Sumayao. Dr. Sumayao is an instructor of Biliran Province State University, Naval Biliran Province, Philippines. He teaches professional education, general sciences, and research subjects. This afternoon, Dr. Sumayao will share his study titled Unveiling the Research Themes of Doctor of Education, Philosophy Dissertations. We will now give the time to Dr. Ernil Sumayao.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Could I share my presentation now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. I'm sharing this one. Is it okay?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Could I start now, ma'am?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So, but before that, I would like also to thank my advisor, which is Dr. Las.
Ah, yes. We know Dr. Las
Thank you
Calusa.
thank you for motivating me to conduct this study and also for the guidance. Okay. So, more or less, some of the participants in this colloquium are experienced what research is, either a research student or an instructor teaching research. So, as a student, one of the requirement of that particular subject is you need to conduct a research, okay? In order for you to pass a particular subject, if you're also a research instructor, you require your student a research. The question is, if you are a student, how you are going to make a research? What would be the first step in making or crafting a research? Okay, so in this study, we will unveil what are the research themes of Doctor of Education and also Doctor of Philosophy dissertations. Okay. So according to Jacobs in 2013, one of the most gratifying and challenging tasks for doctorate student is writing his dissertation problems. Why it is considered as the most gratifying? Because if you could write or formulate your dissertation problem, at least you are now on the first stage of writing it, and it means that maybe you can graduate now to that particular degree. Challenging because it takes time for you to conceptualize that particular dissertation problem. Students exert efforts and time, okay, in writing and conceptualizing a good dissertation problem and also well-expressed research questions, according to Su in 2005. Why it is a good dissertation problem? Because if you are going to present your study to a panel, one of the questions of those panelists is this: how good, better, or best your dissertation problem is. And looking on your research question, how it is well expressed, is your dissertation problem is timely as of this time? It is not obsolete, okay? It is timely, it is relevant. So those are some of the challenges when a student or a researcher write his research problem or dissertation problem. So in the Philippines, okay, the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, crafted the National Higher Education Research Agenda, or what we call NERA, and indicated the priority research areas of the EDD and the PhD major in educational administration. For this reason, according to Clement in 2006, state universities all over the archipelago of the Philippines
I think we lost Dr. Sumayao. I think the connection is not so good. Yeah.
It looks like his connection is so poor that he couldn't even stay on Zoom.
Yes. Ma'am Marceli, you're muted.
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Ernil.
Yes, sir. Sorry for that.
Yes, kindly go ahead.
Okay. So the research effort stems in its system from the fact this
Dr. Sumayao, hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
You are, okay, you just use the audio, but you
Yes.
still share your PowerPoint, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because if you like, I can also show, yes, it will be nice if you can control. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So this research effort stems its enthusiasm from the fact that dissertation problems must be constructed and framed properly, for it serves as the backbone of a research study and research themes or areas anchored with. So it is in this outlook that the researcher aimed to determine the themes of the EDD and PhD dissertations and aim to ascertain if these dissertation problems concord with the NERA 2. And these are the research.
Maybe Ma'am Marceli, if you have his PowerPoint,
Yes,
maybe
I have.
you'd be the one sharing, so he will
Yes,
not
I
consume too
will.
much bandwidth.
I will do that. Okay, so you can see.
Yes, we
Hello?
can see
Yes.
the PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
move on
So
to the
he
slide where
already.
he was speaking.
So I think this was what he said. And so this research effort stems its enthusiasm from the fact that dissertation, okay, I think he has finished this one. So his research questions are the following. The study aimed to unveil the themes of EDD and PhD dissertation problems. Specifically, the study sought to answer the following questions. What are the themes of the EDD and PhD dissertations? And do the dissertation themes concord with the NERA too? So
Yes, Marcelo, I think he's here already.
He is here. Okay. All right. So
perhaps Dr. Ernil can just, kill his video so the only uses
I'm on
audio.
board now.
Yes. How about if I just use my PowerPoint? I mean, I project, I will follow you. So just in case we lose you, then I can come in, then you join. Is that fine?
Yes,
Yes.
it's okay. Much
Yeah.
better.
Kindly
Thank you
continue.
for that.
Yes, please continue with the theoretical framework.
Okay, so the study used the theoretical framework by Jeffries in 1965, which is the evidential decision-making theory, which emphasized that in real life, the individuals often analyze decision problems in terms of dependent acts and states, that it prescribes on taking the action that maximize utility, how much a certain outcome satisfies an agent's preferences. That dissertation problems determine research, which is considered as the research topic and in looking for related literature. So a researcher must explicitly and clearly see the advantages and disadvantages of the decision to be made for the success of the study. So here is my methodology that I used in this study. Participants of the study, I used purposive sampling. So there's a reason why when I use purposive sampling, I also have criteria on how to select my respondents. So participants of the study were the graduates of the EDD and the PhD, specializing in educational administration and management from selected state universities and colleges in Region 8. And these were the graduates of the academic year 2017 and 2018. Finished and submitted hard or soft copy of dissertation to the institution where they graduate. And so those are the criteria. First, the participant ED and PhD came from state universities and colleges in Region 8, finished academic year in 2017 and 2018, and the last criteria is finished and submitted hard and soft copy of dissertation. The study was conducted to the 7 state universities of Region 8, offering Doctor of Education, major in Educational Administration, or Doctor of Philosophy, major in Educational Management. Next slide, please. There were selected 21 participants in the study. If you're going to ask me why there are only 21, there are only 21 students graduated in that particular year. Remember that in our methodology, there is what we call ethical considerations later on, that there are some participants that will not participate in your study, and that is the right actually if they will not going to join or to be part of your study. So there's a reason why I have only 21 participants that will undergo a one-on-one interview, and 17 corpora for content analysis. This 17 corpora, this is the abstract of the dissertation. If you are going to ask, why is it that I will utilize the dissertation abstract and not the whole paper or not the whole dissertation of that particular students? According to Clary 1992 and McCordy and Clary in 1984, they have said that a near perfect agreement between the content analysis of dissertation abstracts and analysis of the total studies. So meaning that the abstract will have a near perfect agreement to the whole content of the study. So that's the reason why I utilized only the abstract of the study for content analysis. Okay, next, please. Next. So my instrument, I utilize two instruments here. The study utilized a research-made form. So in determining the themes of the dissertation, okay. So this research-made form, because will be used in the content analysis of the abstract, okay? So just a matter of researcher-made form. There are columns, and then title of the study will write in the first column, and it depends now on the expert in determining what is the theme of that particular dissertation. So second is the interview. The interview, the researcher conducted a one-on-one interview, and that is a guided interview. He followed the recommendation of Sedman in 1991 that in making a guided interview, the interview must have a 3-interview format, okay, which dedicated to one of the 3 foci, which means that the interview must have first background, experience, and meaning. So for example, for the background, so the first part of the interview, probably you were asking the demographic profile of the respondent or the socioeconomic profile of the respondent. Then the experience later on, you will construct a question that will elicit the experience of the participants. And then what is the last part would be the meaning, okay? So that is the suggestion of Sedman when you are going to craft your research interview. So in the interview consent, the title of the study was indicted as well as the researcher's name. So it is clearly stated the purposes, the procedures, the benefits, the risk, the voluntary participation, and withdrawal, confidentiality, the contact person, and the copy consent form of the participants. So meanwhile, the interview proper was further divided into 2 main parts. The initial interview, where the questions were related to the profile, as what I've said, of the participants, and proper interview, where the questions deal on how the participants conceptualize his or her dissertation. This asked for the area or the theme of the research of their dissertation problems. So the design procedure, so the study employed a qualitative research design, specifically a content analysis and multiple case study design. This design is appropriate for this study because it deals on different programs where state universities and colleges offer either one of the programs. So the researcher conducted the same procedure in gathering the data both of the programs and determined whether the themes of the dissertation problems of the participants have differences or commonalities. So I would like to explain this. Why? Because some university offer Doctor of Education major in educational administration, while other university offer Doctor of Philosophy major in educational management. If you're looking on the CMO here, on the shared memorandum order, there is only one CMO order of ADD and PhD, major in educational administration and educational management. So we were looking, multiple case study design, we were looking 2 different courses, but we will need to look on their commonalities. Okay, that's the reason why this multiple case design. So in data gathering procedures started with the researcher securing permit from the university president, more or less the protocol, and the dean of the graduate school to conduct the foregoing study in the premise of their institution. Then the researcher contacted the participant through mobile calls, SMS, and even private messages in Facebook Messenger. And after the confirmation to the agreed time and place of the interview, the researcher personally met each participant and gave an orientation about the purpose of the study. When the participants were ready for the interview, so the researcher used audio recorder to record the whole interview process. Next, please. So during the interview, the researcher strictly followed the questions in the interview guide. And after the interview, the recorded audio was played with a participant, okay, to ensure its proper recording. So after the interview, the researcher let the participant heard the record audio. The researcher hired individuals in transcribing the audio recordings and sent to the participants for their perusal if the transcription is correct or not, or if they agree or not. After this, the transcriptions were sent back to the researcher for data analysis. So in analyzing the themes using content analysis, so the dissertation, abstracts, and statement of the problems were utilized. That's the reason why I have 17 corpora. The researcher made form copies of abstract and statement of problems were given to the expert for evaluation of the themes. Now, for content analysis, there are experts, but we need also to have the qualifications for these experts. So first is that an expert must be a graduate of Doctor of Education or Philosophy, major in Education Administration or Management. The second is that particular expert must produce, presented, and published researches in institutional and international. Lastly, the third criteria is that that particular expert has an experience in validating research instruments. So these experts thoroughly read the abstracts and statement of the problems of the dissertation. They categorize the dissertation problems based on the checklist provided by the researcher. Okay, that is the researcher made form, as what I've said earlier. After categorizing the dissertation by themes, so the researcher collected the paper, the form. The collected researcher made form for data processing. So the research reflexivity is that the researcher conducted a face-to-face interview to study participants, which is needed to consider the ways in which his interactions with the participants might be influenced by his professional background, experiences, and prior assumptions. So the researcher was a student of Doctor of Education, major in Educational Administration, and currently connected to a state university. So majority of the interviews were conducted in participants' workplaces or homes, meaning that the researcher is also a student and taking up also Doctor of Education. So the researcher have his own assumptions or ideas that might influence to the participants. So as a research reflexivity, the idea of the participant must be welcome because that's his or her idea, and it should not be influenced by the researcher. Then for ethical consideration, the interview process primed by obtaining permission for the participants to be part of the study, and then read and handed the letter of consent containing the necessary information related to the study. Further, the researcher explained the sustained commitment required of participants to gather meaningful data, but also reminded them that they could withdraw their participation in the study anytime. Ultimately, the researcher considered the convenience and availability of the participants and secured the confidentiality of the data gathered. Researcher considered the convenience and availability. In conducting an interview, there are some participants that they're going to say that if you are going to set a date or time, and then they will say that they are not available that particular time, if it is okay for you that the interview will be conducted during weekend, then as a researcher, you say yes. If the participants will say that the interview will be conducted on his house or home because he had something to do during that time, then it's okay as long as there is a place that is good to conduct the interview. So in determining the themes of the dissertation problems, the researcher employed a content and analysis of the abstract and statement of the problem of the dissertations. But in the interview, the researcher used the Braun and Clark, the 6-phase thematic analysis. That the researcher grouped the answers of the participants based on the given questions. Then the data with similar thoughts or meanings were grouped and coded. So when coding was done, the researcher clustered the same codes and themes were formulated. And these themes were reviewed, defined, discussed, and supported with literature. Next, please. So in order to ensure the internal validity of the study, the researcher agrees to Yildirim and Semsek 2005, who said that reporting the data in detail and explaining how the researcher obtained his or her results are important criteria for establishing validity. And according also, furthermore, Ratcliffe in 1995 posited that in using descriptive analysis, another important factor of validity involves directly quoting the participants and explaining the results. Thus, to establish the validity of this study, the researcher directly presented the participants' answers in quotations, and explanations were provided when necessary and supported with related studies. So here are the results and the discussion. So the themes of the EDD and the PhD dissertations based on the results of content analysis is that the emerging themes were curriculum, assessment, evaluation, development, instructional strategy, administrative management, and quality standards. So for curriculum assessment and evaluation development, studies on these themes determine two. A, it assesses the factors that affect the implementation of the school or institutional programs and its relationship to academic or working performance of the respondents. Dissertation in this group evaluate the implementation of the school programs and develop intervention to address the prevailing problems. Most of the dissertation problems that belong to this theme started in identifying the demographic profile of the respondents, like what is the demographic profile or socioeconomic profile of the students, teachers, and administrators, and then which was followed by the level of the performance and implementation of the program. Most also of the dissertation in this group have the hypotheses were tested to ascertain the relationships among the variables. Studies belonging on this theme ended mostly with a development of proposed plan or intervention program based on the findings of the study. So the second theme, or the second, is instructional strategy. So in this group, in this theme, the dissertations or the studies investigate the relationships between the strategies, the approaches, and methodologies to the performance of the respondents. So the study determined the profile of the respondents in terms of their knowledge on instructional strategies and how this knowledge affects their performance, or their positive or negative. Furthermore, it also asserted which of the instructional strategies has a maximum and minimum effect on the dependent variables of the study. So most of this study, like what is the approaches, teaching approach, teaching strategy, and its effect to the learners. Okay. While on the third group, the third theme is administrative management. So most of the dissertation problem here focus on managerial style. Managerial style is one of the themes of dissertation problems of the graduate researchers. So studies on this theme focused on the administrator's knowledge, understanding, commitment, engagement, and satisfaction to the institution programs and its relationships to the subordinates and working place. So the studies also developed an action plan or intervention program in relation to the findings of the study. So for example of this is what is the managerial skills to employee satisfaction, what is the organizational culture. So studies like that belong to this group. And lastly, the research theme. So in this theme, studies or dissertation problems concentrated on evaluating the implementation of programs and its compliance to the standards set by the statutory and regulatory institutions. It also deals on how the programs affects the performance of the administrators and staff of the department. So those are the results, the four things based on the content analysis of those experts. Next, please. So dissertation problems concord with the current national, that will be our research question number 2. So in the narrative, the chair cited priority research areas in education and education management, where dissertation problems should be aligned. So these research areas are program curricular studies in higher education, policy-oriented studies, research quality and standards, technology and education, policy-oriented studies, research quality and standards, model building studies. 6, institute power, demand, and supply studies. 8, graduate tracer studies. And 9, other research topics considered by the Commission response to the emerging needs of the country. So the Commission suggested these research areas so that the universities and colleges produce high-quality research that will advance learning and national development, as well as international compatibility of the Filipino higher extent. Okay. Then next is that this is the results after the thematic analysis. Next slide, please. So during the interview and then doing the thematic analysis, the researcher have emerged 2 themes. The first theme is program curricular studies. And if you could observe, these are the response of the participants when asked what is the area or the theme of the dissertation problem. One of the participants answered that the implementation of the school-based feeding program, which was implemented already for 5 years, and so with the result of the program and then the problems that are being encountered along with implementing program. Participant also answered that the theme is all about the waters, that is SPA, or what we call the special program in the arts, in terms of lesson planning, if they are also provided with the materials, the resources, and the other resources. Another participants also answered the focus of my study is the performance of the school head and the management supervision aspect. So if we're going to observe why is it that this statement is like this of the participants, actually, the researcher did not edit the response of the participants. It just presented as it is based on what they have answered. Because following the suggestion of Ratcliffe for internal validity, that the participants must be quoted directly and supported with related literature later on. Okay, so the next slide, please. Another participant said that, well, by that, in conceptualizing my dissertation problem, the title of my study that was approved by our panelists is about QUAN, okay, about research capabilities of senior high school administrators and teachers. While others also said that focus the governance and how you deal with the people around you. So since I'm anticipated that I will become a school head, so it's good for me to know the philosophies of myself and my colleagues and my subordinates like teachers. Another have answered inclusive education implemented in a division of Northern Samar. So this is research theme or dissertation theme. So other is new trends in education and recording and documenting the innovations and best practices of the schools in a division, while other participants said that it is actually instructional leaderships, that entitled Students' Achievement and Attitude. So more or less, if you could observe, these are the replies of the participants. Okay, so next slide, please. Next slide, ma'am. So most of the dissertation problems focused on knowledge production, scholarly interest in studying leadership in K-12 schools, school change, effects and improvement, organizational behavior in education, and evaluation of school programs. It is according to Hollinger and Chen in 2015. So this result implies that the EDD and PhD major in educational administration and management dissertation gives more importance on program and curricular studies, but not on higher education as indicated in the NERA 2. Okay, so next would be, the second theme is technology and education. There are two participants replied that the theme or the area of the dissertation problem is ICT in education and regarding ICT integration. So the utilization of technology in delivering instruction is also given a priority by conducting research study to determine its effect and impact to the learners. So the summary of findings, conclusions, and recommendations of the study. So the summary of findings that, first, themes of dissertations of ADD and PhD categorically fall into 4: curriculum assessment, evaluation, development, instructional strategy, third, administrative management, and fourth, quality standards. Second, the CHED crafted an era and included priority research areas specifically in education and educational management. Yet, only 2 of these research areas were given focus by the researchers in their dissertation problem. The conclusion of the study states that the themes of the dissertation of EDD and PhD were aligned to the suggested priorities research areas specified in the NERA 2 of CHED. However, there are research themes in the agenda which studies are not conducted. So for recommendation, the following recommendations were formulated. First, at postgraduate level, further courses or short-term courses could be offered regarding on production of researches which are aligned to the research agenda of the institution. Second, the graduate school offering ADD and PhD major in educational administration management program could align the research agenda and themes to the NERA of CHED. So I think that would be all for my presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay. Dr.
Thank you
Pervez.
so much. We have very little time for the question answer time, but let me just ask a brief question. Dr. Ernil, I'm just wondering why you didn't do the quantitative study in this case and cover much more people and just ask for the themes of their research problems. Since you were trying to see which topics we're covering or not covering according to CHED, what do you think? Why qualitative research in this case?
Why is qualitative? Because at least I will ask personally the researcher about his experience or what is his idea in conceptualizing and what will be the factors later on and what motivates him or her to pursue that area or the theme of his or her study. Unlike making it in quantitative, I just already predicted, okay? I just already predicted, but not knowing, okay, what motivates him or what influence him or her when writing that dissertation problem.
just to follow up, these experts, I'm just wondering, why, who are they? Are they co-researchers with you, or they are you participants? Why didn't you do yourself this content analysis?
The experts came from, actually they're not participants. They're not participants of the study, the experts, but rather they are other universities. Okay, I need to find this expert based on those criteria, but they are not participants actually.
Okay, okay.
Just a follow-up, Dr. Sumayao.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Pavel asked, like, why did you use experts and why did you not do yourself the content analysis?
Okay. Why is it that I did not do the content analysis? Because I think, ma'am, I am not qualified yet to be called as expert in doing those content analysis. That's the reason why I hired experts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Dolph.
Yes, this is
Yes,
a case
sir.
study, I believe. And
Yes.
thank you for sharing with us your research that you've done. In a study like this, we have great opportunity to get rich data through those interviews. And we often also say in qualitative research that context is everything. So I wondered to what extent you tried to match your context with the themes that were chosen. Did you explore that at all? Perhaps you can just explain what you did or didn't do.
Okay. What I did is that for my data, actually, there's a reason why there are participants that ask questions and then take all those data. So after that, I made an analysis about it, and actually I am guided with the NERA because the NERA is already there. That is already standard. So if the main point is that are the dissertation themes of this researcher coincide or are they guided with the research agenda of this NERA?
Okay. So you didn't include anything about the particular subculture or, the beliefs of these people to see why they chose certain themes more frequently than others. I'm not trying to ask you about things you didn't do, but
yes.
I'm just wondering to what extent you use the richness of the data that you obtained.
Not anymore, sir. Not anymore. I did not include their belief. I did not include their culture. Not anymore.
Okay.
I just stick to that particular thing.
Thank you.
Okay. What about other panelists? Dr. Maybe Dr. Arceli, who has some comment?
Yeah, David may have a question.
Okay, maybe since we are out of time, maybe I'll just show some of the questions from the attendees.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, here's one from Mr. Belanga. He's saying thank you. And he is asking what practical tips can you share to researchers and research professors as regards to research problem identification?
Okay, so for practical tips for those researchers and research professors, so I think that as a researcher, when a researcher entered into a research class, at least he or she is guided about the research agenda, okay, so that he will not be confused what would be the backbone of his study, what would be the road of his study, okay. So that particular, the research professor must, or let us say shall, okay, orient the researchers or the students that in my class, this is the research agenda that your study will be focused with. And I think so that the students will not like hanging or confusion where to go or how to write a research later on, or what would be the theme or the area. Knowing that each institution have its research agenda, the CHED had NERA, while the basic education also have their research agenda. So I think there is an orientation about these different types of research agenda to the students.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Here's another one by Mr. Ricci. What would be the best qualitative research approach that I can integrate in my dissertation? Mr. Ricci is in math education.
I think I cannot recommend the best qualitative research approach, because the qualitative research approach will determine later on to what would be your research theme and your research question, okay, especially in math education. So there's no, I cannot say that this particular qualitative research design is the best, but rather if there would be the appropriateness of the qualitative research design to your research question.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Arceli, you still have a lot of questions, but do you still have time?
Yeah, let's have one more question. Maybe
more.
you can choose one that is really very relevant and must be answered here. Maybe this one. That's a good question.
One?
Yes.
Okay. This one is from Mr. Adrian Guinto. How did you deal with your own reflexivity in analysis of results?
Okay, so reflexivity. No, in my own is that I let the participants give their own ideas and let myself out of it. Okay, so remember, I know that I have also my own opinions. I have also my own idea about that particular question, but I did not influence their idea. Let it flow and then respect and consider that that is their own idea actually. I think that's it.
Okay, so you're doing bracketing basically. Okay, Marceli, maybe back to you.